Are your ideas really yours? Before you answer, think about the opinion you defend the most. Politics, religion, success, relationships. Whatever it is. How do you know it was your idea in the first place? Because what if the strongest beliefs in your mind weren't created by you at all? What if they were simply planted so carefully that you now call them your own? Tonight we're going to find out. 1. The illusion of original thought. Think of your favorite opinion, the opinion you defend the most, the one you would argue with strangers over, the one that feels like you. Now answer one question. Who put it there? Most people believe they're independent thinkers, that their opinions, their morals, their political beliefs, their taste in music, their favorite brands, all came from careful reasoning. But psychology tells a very different story, and by the end of this video, there's a chance you'll question not just one opinion, but your entire identity. Because what if your mind isn't as private as you think? What if ideas don't need permission to enter? What if they simply arrive? Imagine a newborn child. No religion, no political party, no national pride, no favorite sports team, no hatred, no ideology. Just a brain ready to absorb. Now fast forward 20 years. That same child is willing to fight online, lose friendships, even risk their life for beliefs they never consciously chose. Somehow, someone filled the empty pages, and the terrifying part, they believed they wrote every word. Here's something most people never realize. Your brain wasn't designed to discover truth. It was designed to survive for hundreds of thousands of years. Being accepted by your tribe meant survival. Being different meant death. If everyone believed the berries were poisonous, you believed it too, not because it was true, because disagreeing could get you abandoned. Evolution rewarded conformity long before it rewarded critical thinking, and that ancient survival mechanism still lives inside your head. Every day, thousands of ideas compete for space inside your mind. Not with force, not with violence, but with repetition. A phrase repeated enough becomes familiar. Familiar becomes comfortable. Comfortable becomes believable. Until one day, you call it your opinion. Here's the strange part. The most successful influence never feels like influence, because if someone tells you what to think, you'll resist. But if they make you believe you discovered the idea yourself, you'll defend it forever. That's the difference between control and manipulation. Control tells you, manipulation convinces you that you chose, and once you believe an idea is yours, you'll protect it, even when it's hurting you, even when it's false, even when the evidence says otherwise. So, where do our beliefs actually come from? Why do some ideas stay with us for life, while others disappear within days? And more importantly, how can millions of complete strangers living different lives end up thinking in remarkably similar ways? To answer that, we first need to understand how the human mind was designed to think. Because before anyone can influence your beliefs, your brain has to be built in a way that allows it to, the invisible author. You probably think your mind is the one place nobody can reach. Your room can be entered, your phone can be hacked, your conversations can be overheard. But your thoughts, those are yours, or at least that's what you've always believed. Because if I asked you why you believe what you believe, you'd probably have an answer. Maybe you'd say, I did my research. I looked at the facts. I came to this conclusion myself. And maybe you honestly believe that. But here's something uncomfortable. Can you remember the exact moment you formed your strongest beliefs? Not when you first said them, not when you argued. For them, the exact moment they became yours. Most people can't, because beliefs rarely arrive like lightning. They arrive like rain, one drop at a time. A comment from your parents, a teacher you respected, a friend you admired, a headline, a meme, 100 videos recommended by an algorithm, 1,000 conversations. None of them seem powerful on their own, but together. They slowly build the lens through which you see reality. And once that lens is in place, everything you experience starts to pass through it. Two people can witness the exact same event, walk away, and become even more convinced that their interpretation is the correct one. Not because one is necessarily smarter, but because neither person is seeing the event directly. They're seeing it through years of accumulated influence that often feels so natural. We mistake it for independent thought. So here's the question that will guide this entire video. If your beliefs are shaped by everything around you, where does influence end? And where do you begin to answer that? We have to travel back to 1951, to a simple room, a handful of volunteers, and an experiment so shocking that it changed psychology forever because it revealed something about human nature that most of us still don't want to admit. Sometimes, we'd rather doubt our own eyes than stand alone. 3. The Asch conformity experiment. Imagine you volunteered for what you believe is a simple vision test. Nothing complicated. You walk into a room, take your seat, and around you are 7 other participants, or so you think. What you don't know is that every single person in that room is secretly working with the researchers. Except you're the only real participant. The task couldn't be easier. On one card, there's a single vertical line. On another, there are 3 more. One is clearly the same length as the first line. The other 2 are obviously different. It's so easy that nearly everyone gets it right at first. Everyone in the room gives the correct answer. Everything feels normal. Then, something strange happens. The next question appears. You already know the answer. It's obvious, but the first person says, line C. You pause. Maybe they misheard. Then the second person also says line C. The third line C. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth, until every single person in the room has chosen an answer that is clearly wrong. Now, it's your turn. You look at the lines again. Nothing has changed. The answer is still obvious. Your eyes tell you one thing. 7 other people tell you another. So, who do you trust? Your own eyes or everyone else? Most of us like to believe we'd stand our ground. We picture ourselves saying, they're wrong. The answer is obvious. But that's not what happened. When psychologist Solomon Asch conducted this experiment in 1951, many participants knowingly gave the wrong answer simply because everyone else had done so. They weren't forced. They weren't threatened. There was no reward for agreeing. Just one powerful force. The discomfort of standing alone. Across the experiment, about 3/4 of participants conformed at least once, even when the correct answer was plain to see. Think about that. People doubted their own eyes. Not because reality had changed, but because the group had. Why? Psychologists found 2 powerful reasons. The first is called normative social influence. Sometimes, we don't agree because we think the group is right. We agree because we don't want to be rejected, because humans fear isolation more than they realize. The second is informational social influence. When enough people disagree with us, our brain begins asking a dangerous question. What if I'm the one who's wrong? Not because the evidence changed, but because the social environment did. Our confidence starts to crack. Doubt quietly slips in. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Now imagine this experiment. Not with 8 strangers in a room, but with millions of people online. Imagine the group isn't 7 people anymore. It's your news feed, your recommended videos, the comments you read, the influencers you follow, the friends whose posts you see every day. You may never be told what to think, but you are constantly shown what everyone else appears to think, and that changes something. not overnight, but slowly, quietly, one opinion at a time. Here's what's fascinating. The participants who conformed didn't walk out saying, "I knew I was manipulated." Most believed they had made a reasonable decision in the moment. That's what makes social influence so powerful. It rarely feels like influence. It feels like your own judgment. And if something as simple as the length of a line can be changed by the people around us, what happens when the question isn't about lines, but about politics, morality, justice, identity, beliefs we'd be willing to defend for years? Because if a room full of strangers can change what you say, what can trusted authorities change? About what you believe? That's exactly what another psychologist wanted to discover. And what he found was even more disturbing: the Milgram obedience experiment. 4. The Milgram obedience experiment. The Asch experiment revealed something unsettling. People were willing to doubt their own eyes, simply because everyone else in the room disagreed. But that left psychologists with an even bigger question. What if it wasn't the crowd influencing you? What if it was someone you believed had authority? Would you still follow your own conscience, or would you obey? In the early 1960s, the world was still trying to understand one of history's darkest chapters, the Holocaust. Millions of ordinary people had participated in horrific acts under the Nazi regime. After the war, many defended themselves with a simple explanation: "I was just following orders." To many people, that excuse sounded impossible. Surely, an ordinary person would refuse an immoral command, wouldn't they? One psychologist wasn't satisfied with assumptions. He wanted evidence. So he designed an experiment, one that would become one of the most controversial in the history of psychology. Participants arrived believing they were taking part in a study about learning and memory. They were introduced to another volunteer, who was actually working with the researchers. One person would be the teacher, the other the learner. The roles appeared random. They weren't. The real participant was always the teacher. The learner was taken into another room and connected to what looked like an electric shock machine. The teacher's job sounded simple: read a list of word pairs. Every time the learner made a mistake, deliver an electric shock with each mistake. Increase the voltage 0.15 volts, then 30, 31, 35. Higher and higher. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that at first. The learner grunted, then complained, then begged to stop. Eventually, he screamed in pain. Then there was silence. The participant became visibly uncomfortable. Many questioned the experiment. Some laughed nervously. Others pleaded to stop. But whenever they hesitated, the researcher calmly repeated the same instruction: "Please continue." The experiment requires that you continue. You have no other choice. You must continue. No shouting, no threats, no force, just calm authority. Before the experiment, experts predicted almost nobody would continue to the highest voltage. The estimate was less than 1%. They were wrong. Far more participants obeyed than anyone expected. Many continued all the way to the maximum voltage they believed they were administering, despite showing visible signs of distress. They weren't cruel people. They weren't selected for aggression. They were ordinary men and women, which was exactly what made the finding so disturbing. The lesson wasn't that humans are evil. It was something much more uncomfortable. Authority has an extraordinary ability to shape our decisions, especially when responsibility feels shared. When someone in a position of perceived legitimacy tells us what to do, our brains often shift from asking, "Is this right?" to asking, "Am I supposed to do this?" And that subtle change can completely alter human behavior. Now think about the world you live in. From the moment you're born, you're surrounded by authority figures: parents, teachers, religious leaders, experts, celebrities, influencers, political leaders. Some earn trust through genuine expertise, some through reputation, some simply because many people believe they should be trusted. Authority itself isn't the problem. Societies need knowledgeable people and institutions. The real question is different. How often do we stop evaluating ideas? Because they came from someone we already trust? By now, two pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. The crowd influences us. Authority influences us. But there's one more force, far more subtle than either of them. It doesn't ask for your attention. It quietly learns what you like, what you fear, what keeps you watching, and then it feeds you more of it every single day. Welcome to the age of algorithms. 5. The invisible curator. Imagine waking up tomorrow and every single thing you saw had already been chosen for you. The news, the videos, the posts, the advertisements, even the opinions that appeared in your comments. Sounds terrifying, doesn't it? But here's the uncomfortable part. For many of us, that isn't a hypothetical. It's already happening. Not because someone sits in a secret room deciding every thought you should have, but because countless systems and people with different goals are constantly competing for your attention. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources in the world, and wherever attention goes, influence follows. Think about the last time you opened your phone. Did you choose every video you watched? Or were many of them recommended to you? Did you search for every opinion you encountered? Or did they simply appear, one after another? Every click, every like, every pause teaches the system a little more about you, not who you say you are, who your behavior says you are. And once a system starts learning what keeps you engaged, it often gives you more of the same, not necessarily because it's trying to change your beliefs, but because keeping your attention is its job. Over time, you can begin seeing one slice of the world far more often than others, and when one perspective is repeated enough, it can start to feel like the obvious one. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Once we believe something, our minds naturally notice information that supports it and overlook information that challenges it. It doesn't mean we're dishonest. It means we're human. Imagine wearing a pair of glasses without realizing you have them on. Eventually, you stop seeing the glasses. You only see the world through them. Beliefs work the same way. Now add another layer: the people around you, your friends, your family, your favorite creators, the communities you belong to. Humans don't just adopt ideas. We adopt identities. Once a belief becomes part of who we are, changing that belief can feel like losing a piece of ourselves. That's why debates become emotional, because they often aren't about facts alone. They're about belonging. This is where influence becomes incredibly powerful. Not because people are forced, but because messages are often wrapped inside something we already trust. A familiar face, a shared value, a community we feel connected to. The idea slips in quietly, alongside everything else. The same principle exists in advertising. Companies rarely sell products. They sell identities. They don't just market a pair of shoes. They market confidence, status, adventure, belonging. The product becomes a symbol, and people willingly buy into the story. Political communication often works in a similar way. Most political movements don't begin by saying, "Believe us because we're powerful." Instead, they usually appeal to values people already care deeply about. Safety, freedom, justice, equality, security, tradition, hope. Those values are real, and people can support them for sincere reasons. But many different groups can also compete to define what those words mean and how they should be achieved. That's why the same event can produce completely different narratives. Each side highlights different facts, different fears, different hopes, different solutions. The goal isn't always to invent new values. Sometimes it's to connect existing values to a particular message. The same can happen with protests and public movements. Many begin because ordinary people genuinely care about an issue, and that genuine concern deserves to be taken seriously. But large movements also attract attention. Media organizations, political groups, public figures, activists with different priorities, even companies. Each may try to support, amplify, criticize, or redirect the conversation toward their own goals. Sometimes those goals align with the movement, sometimes they don't, and the people participating may not always agree with every message that becomes attached to the cause. Influence isn't always about creating a movement. Sometimes it's about shaping the story around it. The point isn't that every message is manipulation or that every institution is dishonest. Far from it. The point is simpler. Every day, thousands of people, organizations, creators, advertisers, campaigns, and platforms are trying to persuade you of something. Some are trying to inform you. Some are trying to sell you something. Some are trying to earn your vote. Some are trying to gain your trust. Some simply want your attention. All of them are competing for space inside your mind, which brings us back to the question we asked at the very beginning. If your beliefs are shaped by your family, your culture, your friends, your experiences, your algorithms, your favorite creators, your communities, your education, your emotions, then where exactly does your own thinking begin? And more importantly, is it even possible to think completely independently? Let's find out. After everything we've talked about, here's the question: can anyone truly think for themselves? Or are we all just collections of borrowed ideas? The honest answer is somewhere in between, because influence isn't the enemy. It's impossible to grow up without it. Your parents influenced you. Your teachers influenced you. Your friends influenced you. Books influenced you. The internet influenced you. Even this video is influencing you right now. That's not a flaw in being human. It's part of being human. The real danger isn't influence. The real danger is unquestioned influence. Most people don't suddenly change their minds. They slowly stop questioning them. A belief repeated often enough starts feeling like common sense, a familiar idea. Starts feeling like truth, and eventually, we stop asking, why do I believe this? Instead, we begin defending it, not because we've examined it, but because it has become part of us. The philosopher Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Maybe today, he would have said something slightly different. The unexamined belief is not worth defending, because every belief, no matter how deeply personal, deserves at least one question. How did I arrive here? Did I investigate both sides? Did I change my mind because of evidence, or because everyone around me did? Am I defending a conclusion or protecting an identity? Independent thinking doesn't mean rejecting everything. It doesn't mean assuming every institution is lying or believing every popular opinion is wrong. That's not critical thinking. That's simply reacting in the opposite direction. Real independent thinking is much harder. It means being willing to question the ideas you agree with, just as much as the ones you don't. It means admitting, I could be wrong. And surprisingly, that sentence is one of the strongest signs of intelligence, because certainty is comfortable, curiosity is uncomfortable. Certainty ends the conversation, curiosity begins it. The people who are easiest to influence aren't the ones who know the least. They're often the ones who believe. They're impossible to influence. So, let's go back to the very first question. Are your ideas really yours? Maybe some of them probably are. Many of them were shaped by people you love. Some were shaped by your culture. Some by your experiences. Some by the media you consume. Some by voices you've forgotten you ever heard. The point isn't to erase every influence. That's impossible. The point is to become aware of them, because awareness is where freedom begins. The next time someone tells you what to believe, pause. The next time an opinion feels instantly obvious, pause. The next time you find yourself defending an idea with absolute certainty, ask yourself one simple question. If I had been born somewhere else, raised by different people, surrounded by different ideas, would I still believe this? And if that question makes you uncomfortable, good, because that discomfort might be the first thought that is truly your own. Maybe true freedom isn't having no influence at all. Maybe it's simply knowing where your ideas came from before deciding which ones deserve to stay.